Hello everybody, and welcome back to Chapter Master. Game's certainly going to keep me a bit busy for a while, I must say. But anyway, welcome back to Chapter Master. Now, thanks to the recent influx of subs and people asking about this game, as I said, I've got my work cut out for me, and I've received many requests, which I'm going to get onto. I've actually got my Storm Knights Reborn playthrough on the editing table. There's a few glitches in it that I need to edit out. And I want to do a full in-depth Chaos Corruption guide at some point, but that's actually a bigger task than you would think. I'm actually even going to probably bring back the old original alpha for that, just to explain some of the points for it, so that'll hopefully be next week. But for now, I was asked for just a general tips, tricks, and just general sort of impactful knowledge that I have about Chapter Master to share with everyone, and I thought I would do so. Now, I must admit, the amount of knowledge I have is probably enough to make a member of the Adeptus Mechanicus blush, but we'll try and limit it a little bit so I don't go 3 hours rambling on about this. Alright, so, we're going to begin. Now, for starting chapters, I'm just going to tell you a few things. Most of these don't work. So, as you can see, the Dark Angels work. The White Scars, who is it? It's the White Scars and the Raven, yeah. The White Scars, the Raven Guard do not work, and I've actually made very old now, but I have actually made around, creation guides for a lot of the chapters that don't actually have builds. So, Black Templars don't work, White Scars do not work, Imperial Fists do not work, Minotaurs, Crimson Fists, Carcharodons. Basically, you want to write off a lot of these chapters just for reference. So, if you're wondering why you're hammering on clicking the button and it's not doing anything, it's because that chapter was never implemented. Lamenters. So, we're just going to... Randomize is a fun way to do it, but I think custom is always the best. So, let us begin. Alright, now, for custom, at strength 5, with no disadvantages, advantages, or modifiers, that will give you a standard 1000 Marine force, and as the game says, with 50 additional Marines. So, if we go to maximum, it'll give you 1250 Marines. For everyone under 5, you lose 100. So, it's kind of a good idea to stay at 5. Cooperation, again, as it says, that's how much the Imperium and all the various factions will like you. Again, this is influenced by these. Purity and stability determine the likelihood of, well, purity is how many gene seed mutations you're going to have to pick at the start of the game. And stability is how likely you are to have mutations as you're playing through. Which has happened a few times for me, and it's never ideal, but I've never had any, really bad stability problems. So, it is what it is. Alright, now at 5 purity, you will have to pick 2 mutations. Dropping it lower to, I think, 3, you will have to pick 4. Picking it up to 7, I think you have to pick 1, and you must get it to full 10 to have 0. So that's an interesting thing about that. Alright, now, Homeworld, basically will start you off with a fully level fortified planetary homeworld, which is also doubles as a recruitment planet. The thing about that is, you have to take any relics or artifacts you find back to said homeworld to identify them and be able to use them, which is a bit of a pain in the butt. Fleet Base gives you a battle barge, which is a very powerful battleship for the fleet base battles, when the missiles work properly. And that basically is a mobile base, so it allows you to basically identify relics as you pick them up, as long as you have a battle barge in the fleet that picks up said relic. Relic, yeah. Penitent, I hate Penitent. It's better than it used to be. Penitent system used to suck in the original alpha, but I'm thankful it's just a 100-year timer in this latest version, so I'm very appreciative of that. But even then, it sucks. I've only ever managed to, in my private playthroughs, get one chapter off a Penitent Crusade. And that was a slog. I think the highest I ever got the Lamenters up to was like 70%. Anyway, advantages and disadvantages. Ambushes, it's kind of interesting. It doesn't really tell you. You need to have your troops landed on a planet to get that ambush bonus. If you deep strike or just immediately launch an attack, that doesn't really work. Battle Cousins doesn't work. Borders, I honestly have no idea. I've tried using it, but the boarding system is so bollocks that just don't bother. Bolter drilling is actually really good. So bolt weapons start off with 40 damage as primary standard for a standard bolter. That will up it to 46 damage, which plus 6 damage ain't nothing to sneeze at, so it's really good for that one. That one gives you a full 10 honor guard. They will be equipped with power weapons and storm bolters. Not implemented crafters. Now, this is an interesting one, because it normally gives you more relics in your librarian. However, because of the Horus Heresy mod I use when on this version, because it also has the advanced visuals, it actually deletes all of your starting relics, but taking that with the Horus Heresy mod, it will give you access to, at the beginning, to Tartaros pattern Terminator armor, plus more weapons, like plasma weapons and things like that. So, it's still good to take for the Terminator armor and more dreadnoughts and stuff, but you won't get the starting artifacts if you're using the enhanced visuals that the Horus Heresy mod provide. If you want to do a Chaos run, that's a good place to start. It gives you really powerful Witchfire Psykers. However, if you suffer a Perils of the Warp, it will summon greater demons, and the Imperium is going to turn on you very quickly. Maybe if they witness it 3 or 4 times, they'll declare you renegade. Now, enemy for the Eldar, again, it just increases damage. It isn't too bad, but if you're choosing to fight a particular enemy, then it's, it is what it is. You don't usually use them myself, because you're fighting a lot of enemies, so it's kind of situational. Kings of Space, that's good if you're doing a fleet-based chapter, because you get the bonuses of having your chapter master commanding the fleet without actually having to have your chapter master be in harm's way. Lightning Warriors, I love Lightning Warriors because I do a lot of raiding. As I'll get to later, raiding is hideously overpowered in this game over actually fighting or landing troops. So Lightning Warriors is really good for maximizing your damage. Paragon, you don't want to keep your chapter master on the front lines. While it's awesome and heroic, it will increase the likelihood of him getting killed, and if your chapter master dies, you lose your playthrough. So, good for keeping him alive, but personally, he shouldn't be in harm's way very often anyway. Psyker Abundance, that's for your Blood Ravens or Thousand Suns followers. Again, it gives you a lot more Psykers. They get bonus experience, they train faster, and it's pretty good. Although, remember to equip them all with Psychic Hoods, as I'll get to later. Revenant Guardians, that's good, but if you give enough relics to the Ecclesiarchy, then it's not too worried. Again, same thing, it enhances your disposition with the Mechanicus, which I will get to disposition later. Scavengers, I love that, because you can find, if you land troops on a planet to search for relics or artifacts, or even just landing them on a planet to search ancient ruins, then you get chances of getting, random weapons and equipment. I've gotten Terminator armors and things like that occasionally, but it's really good because it will give you, usually things like 5 melter guns, 2 power fists, and a power sword, which, considering all of your weapons cost requisition, getting them for free is a good thing. Siege Masters, that's if you're going for a defensive-offensive landing playthrough. Again, because of how hideously overpowered raiding is, I don't usually take it. Similar to Slow and Purposeful. Yeah, it just isn't worth it. And Melee Enthusiasts, again, that's the symbol for bolter drilling. Basically, will give you plus 6 damage on... Yeah, plus 6 damage for chainswords, and I think it was plus 4 damage for power weapons when I did the maths on it. Don't quote me on that. Because as I said, I played this so often that I kind of forget a few things as much as I remember them. I think it is plus 4 damage for power weapons and plus 6 damage for chained weapons. Anyway, carrying on. Alright, disadvantages. Black Rage, basically that gives you, well, again, it forces some of your Marines to become Death Company members, which transforms them into Assault Marines. Again, they're locked as Assault Marines, fairly suicidal, so they will basically just attack. The Ecclesiarchian don't like it very much, but tough. I don't usually have too much problems with them, although one playthrough as a homebrew Blood Angel successor, I ended up losing like 100 Marines in my playthrough to Black Rage, which was annoying. Again, that one's just basically crippling you at the start. It's, you may as well just do Penitent if you want to cripple yourself like that. Again, little special war gear or psychers. That's good for if you want to roleplay as a brand new chapter. The Dark Angels one. This is a double-edged sword, because if you don't hunt for the Fallen, you suffer massive morale problems for your own chapter, but worse off, your loyalty to the Imperium actually goes down, and I've been declared a renegade for blowing off hunting the Fallen because I've been busy dealing with Orc Wars and things, which is a bit hypocritical, but thanks, Imperium. So, if you're playing Dark Angels, you can do it, but make sure to have multiple splinter fleets able to track them down at a moment's notice, because if you're playing a solid centralized chapter, you're not going to probably be able to disengage and heft the 30 turns over to where the Fallen are in time. Psyker Intolerant, Black Templars, no Librarians. The Lamenter's unique trait. Don't take it. It sucks. I'm going to be honest with you here. Shitty luck lives up to its name. Do you like having entire companies and half your fleet lost in the warp? Do you like dropping some squad of scouts into a bunch of ancient ruins to look for artifacts and end up coming across 6,000 traitor marines? If you do, take that skill. If you have a brain, do not. Trust me, it is disgusting. Entire companies lost to the warp, never to return. Librarians exploding out of nowhere. It's just awful. Sieged. Now this one is interesting. It reduces the number of Marines greatly, and you retain a normal amount of equipment, but it's damaged. Now, the damaged equipment part isn't too bad, because if you even out tech Marines amongst the companies, and by the time you actually get your chapter organized and sorted, the equipment's usually repaired. However, that'll basically take off about 500 Marines, basically. It'll remove half your chapter to do so. So, yes, it is actually. Yeah, it's 500 Marines, because I remember when I did a playthrough like that, and I had, I had 1,050, it took it down to 650, so there you go. It removes 500 Marines, basically. Suspicious, that lowers your disposition with the Inquisition, which is, I sometimes take it because the Inquisition is actually easy to butter up if you give them demonic artifacts. If you find a demonic artifact and immediately turn it over to the Inquisition, then it's fine, it's good. Tech Heresy, that just pisses off the Mechanicus. Again, I sometimes take it because I don't really do much trading with the Mechanicus. I do a lot of trading with the Ecclesiarchy, because personally they give me more useful crap than the Mechanicus does. And for much more affordable prices, yeah, Mechadendrite-loving price-gouging pricks. Tolerant, more lenient with the Xenos, unless you're trying to do trade with the Eldar to get shuriken weapons and Eldar power weapons and stuff. There's not really any point taking it. The Tau are kind of, they're going to keep conquering and subjugating planets even if you have good disposition with them. And if you're a true loyalist, you'll just burn them all like they deserve. So don't take it unless you're a filthy Xeno lover. or the Eldar Craft World Farsi is female, in which case go ahead. Now, Warp Touched. Oh, basically that means you're more likely to have random demons popping up, and if your librarians suffer perils of the warp thing, then you're going to have a Keeper of Secrets or a Bloodthirster inside your ship, or on the battlefield where you've just been fighting those orcs. Not a good idea, and the Imperium, if they see it, will become narky. So I really don't recommend that one. Good for if you're going for a Chaos playthrough, but otherwise don't bother. Alright, so let us just... Oh yes, I should probably establish this, forgive me. I'm just so used to this that tips and tricks kind of need to be established. So, any advantage costs 20 points. Any disadvantage you bring will give you 20 points. So you have 100 points to play with, which can potentially be another 100 if you max out disadvantages, which is pretty insane, but there you go. So, let us go for, let's just say, bolter drilling, scavengers, melee enthusiasts, and that should be fine. And then let's just say disadvantage them by Tech Heresy. So that gives us 60 points to play with. So we shall up our purity, up our strength slightly. Stability isn't too much of a thing. If you're paranoid about what order to do these four, then I would say strength is probably best to keep it in the middle or one below maximum. Otherwise, you're going to be hemorrhaging Marines pretty early. Corporation is easy to, well, not easy, but it's possible to get it through trade, gifting artifacts, gifting money, requisition and stuff to various factions, so that's not too bad. Purity, if you don't want to have to deal with all the nonsense of gene seed mutation, it's probably better to do that. And stability, that only really matters for longer playthroughs. So we're going to go fleet-based chapter. Line of Hell, that's fine. Recruiting World, again, this is just for aesthetic. It doesn't actually do anything. It would be cool in a full version if you had, like, Death Worlds would give you, recruits that have better melee attack, or, let's say, Shrine Worlds give you better loyalty, Feudal Worlds give you better range, stuff like that. Aspirant Trial, again, it basically, I don't need to explain it, it tells you what it is on each of them. I usually kind of stick to basically just ones that sort of don't have too much negative effects, really. Kind of, yeah. Psychic powers. Now, default, Biomancy, the healing's pretty minimal, and it doesn't really do as much as I'd like. I think it could be buffed a bit more, but Biomancy's alright. Pyromancy's fun, but again, it's kind of one of those scenarios. It looks cool, but it doesn't really... I kind of just hang out with default. Rune Magic, that Space Wolf stuff. And Telekinesis, yeah, that's Telekinesis is alright. Alright. There we go. Now, this is where you can have a lot of fun just playing around with everything. So you've got various color schemes you can do. You can change how you want it. You can do quadrant. You can add trim. You can make breastplate separate color. So it's really good for just basically doing what you'd like to do. Make your own custom colors. Make your own custom chapter. It's brilliant. Color schemes, a little limited in terms of, like, it'd be cool if there were a few more options for a finished version, and some of the colors look a little similar, like gold doesn't look like gold, gold looks more like yellow, and yellow looks more pale. There are 3 types of red, but it's kind of, again, like it's just the darkness tint rather than anything else. So, yeah, that's alright. I can kind of dig it. Now, for each role, you can customize what equipment they get once they are inducted into that role, or what they start with once you start the playthrough. So let's just say we want apothecaries to have power axes, storm bolters, power armor. Again, you can have scout armor or terminator armor. Mobility item, do you want all of your troops to be armed with bikes or jump packs? So let's do that. You can also rename them, so we could just go entombed, and that would be perfectly satisfactory. Last cannon, that's fine. Close combat weapon. Armor, dreadnought is its own sort of thing, so just leave it at that. Names, of course you can name all the guys however you like. Now, low equalist distribution. That basically is kind of the codex sort of thing of, it'll basically give each of your companies a squad of assault marines, well, 2 squads of assault marines and 2 squads of devastators like the codex. Not clicking it means basically each company will be standard. So 8th company will only have assault marines. 9th company will only be devastators. 4th company will only have tactical marines. 1st company will only have veterans. So honestly, just click it. It saves you having to do it yourself, and it's really useful. I mean, drawing out your firepower is what you want. Alright, load to ships. That will basically just load your marines to every single ship you have, including escorts, which can be handy if you're playing a splintered playthrough and you've got a lot of marines in different areas. But I just load them to strike cruisers because it's less temperamental and micromanaged nonsense to have to deal with later down the road. Mutations. Now, that one, they're more susceptible to poisons and toxins. That's if you're fighting Eldar mostly, and I think Nurgle, but that doesn't come up so often. Of course, some of these just decrease disposition. That one, if you've got no, that counts as 4 mutations. So it's kind of, you cannot make any more Astartes until research is completed. If you're running a Penitent Crusade, then, and you've got a lot of, mutations you might have to take, then that's a good idea to take, because you're not going to be recruiting Marines anyway. That's my little tip. If you're not going to be creating Marines anyway, and you've got to have mutations, that's a good one to take. Again, Deep Strike Marines receive penalties. Don't ever take that. Deep Strike is way too powerful to sacrifice for that. That one, that one will get you annoyed by the Imperium quite quickly, cannibalizing the enemies and yourselves. Good for Blood Angel successes if you want to play the Renegade route. Again, twice as much healing, it's kind of, That's a good one to take, because while Gene Seed is a very good tradable resource, and you need to tithe some to the Mechanicum every so often, if you have to take a mutation, then there's ways you can counteract that. Again, more casualties, less attack, disposition. Stun grenades blight rights and have a massive penalty during morning battles. I don't actually, even after a million hours of playing this game, I don't truly know what it means. So, and that one damages your armor periodically, which is mildly annoying. So we're going to go Lost Zygote so I can tell you how to counteract it. Now, Chapter Master. I'm not going to call him Kit, that's rubbish. How about... There we go. Alright, now this just sort of dictates what weapon you start with. Now, Born Leader, again, it increases your disposition and gives you plus 10% requisition income each turn. Champion, again, that basically it says it. And a Psyker, that makes him an alpha level Psyker with every psychic power. And basically a almost functional immunity to perils of the warp. So if you're going for a Psyker playthrough, then that's really good to have, as your commander. Weapons, just pick what you like, really. Although some weapons don't work well with others, believe it or not. Like Relic Blade and pistols. The pistols will actually give you a negative bonus to your Relic Blade ability. So if you actually want to use your melee a bit more, then I'd recommend going Relic Blade and either integrated bolters or Storm Shield. Go Mastercrafted Heavy Bolter and Force Weapon. You know what? We'll make him a Psycho for fun. Alright, let us begin. Now, I've gone for +6, as you can see, so I've got 1,050 Marines, which includes 75 Command Staff. I start with 20 Gene Seed, 100 Loyalty. That's your base income each turn. Alright, now, tips and tricks that the game doesn't tell you. This is incredibly important. So if you fell asleep during the first opening spiel, then wake up. This is where you need to listen to. Okay, the biggest thing the game doesn't tell you, and the thing that still trips me up even after all these years playing it, is when you start, all of your vehicles will be on whatever planet you are orbiting. And to load them, you need to manually go down, select the vehicles you want, and load them into your ship. It doesn't tell you this, and so many times I have left behind the entire chapter's complement of armor because I would just forget. Alright, so I'm not going to load everything in there, but we'll just load a few things. Rabble. Right. There we go. Now, Battle Barge starts with... Let's go to Fleet. Battle Barge will have 600 capacity, and Strike Cruisers have 250. Just like in Cannon, it's perfectly fine. And usually that's enough to fit most of your vehicles into. I'd recommend throwing the Land Raiders, which take up a lot of room, into the Battle Barge. Again, as you said, it takes up 20 space for a Land Raider. Rhinos take up 10, so that's basically 10 Marines. So, there you go. That's the best tip I have, is always remember your armor. Because you never forget it. Now, with the Horus Heresy mod I have, it removes your starting artifacts. But, without it, you usually start with 6 artifacts. And usually 2 or 3 of them will be Chaos Tainted or Demonic. Now, we'll get to what we need to do with those anyway. Now, going through the chapter, basically it's a very clunky interface. If you want to manually land Marines on a planet, you have to select the Marines, select Unload, and at the end of a battle, you need to reload them. If you've landed your troops, you have to reload them. Otherwise, the game doesn't automatically do it unless you are visiting ancient ruins or picking up artifacts. If you do that, then your Marines will automatically be reloaded, but if you're not, they will not reload your Marines, and it's possible to leave entire companies behind on planets and forget about it because the game doesn't reload it. I honestly think that I'm of two minds about it, because if you're planning a defensive playthrough, then keeping your troops on the planet is a good idea, but it's so easy to forget about them that it's kind of annoying to have to deal with. So, 6 of 1. I personally prefer it if it reloaded all your Marines. Again, there's easy ways to select or deselect certain units, but if you just want a squad, then it's incredibly finicky to have to do, because double clicking will usually just select everything. So it's a case of you will need to select the entire squad by hand, which again is not very good, and I think in a finished version that should be refined. Anyway, let's carry on. Alright, Armamentarium. Now when I start, I like to use my starting income to buy a whole bunch of weapons. I like to buy at least 10 flamers, 10 melter guns, and usually 10 combi flamers. Where's a combi flamer? 10 combi flamers. If I'm feeling saucy, then I'll get 10 chain axes, or sometimes even 20 chain axes as well, because, believe it or not, it does 80 damage melee splash, and the chainsaw does 60 damage melee splash, and there is no functional difference in terms of anything else. You're basically paying $4, which is $1 more than the chainsword, for plus 20 damage, so you'd be mad not to. Oh yes, we'll see if we can find an STC and then I'll explain what they do, otherwise I'll explain it later. Alright, so, first thing you want to do, just keep a look around, have a look at the type of sector you're playing in and what threats you've got. The biggest threat will be orcs. Ignore the Tyranids are pushovers. That can be killed with half a company of Marines. That's nothing. This has the potentiality to cause you no heavy measure of problems, and it will require at least 3 companies to deal with. So, do not underestimate the orcs. Tiny presence of orcs can be dealt with by a single 100-man strong company. Alright. Oh yes, I was going to say, Apothecarium. Now, okay, I thought I could counteract that negative missing zygote, but anyway. A good idea at the start with your starting gene seed is to put 10 of it into here. So add test slave and put some of it into there. Because what it will do is it will double the gene seed once it's done. So it usually takes like 10 or 12 months, which is in-game turns, to do. Sometimes it takes even longer. But it will double the amount of gene seed you get, which means you'll have more gene seed to implant into Marines, which is what you need to turn a scout into a Marine. So let's just say promote you to 9th Company. It will require a gene seed, so do that. Anyway, back to Apothecarium. So it's really good to add, test slaves to get yourself some more gene seed, which you can use for trading. You can gift it to the Mechanicus when they start getting narky at you, and you can use it to make more Marines. So it's actually a good thing to do. Again, armamentarium, vehicles, armor, and equipment. Anything with this, with the green writing, you cannot buy in this store. You can only get it from unique places. So, heavy flamers and eviscerators you get from trading the Ecclesiarchy. Incinerators, hell rifles you get from the Inquisition. Archaeotech pistols you pick up. Company standards, I've never figured out where you get them from, believe it or not. I think it's trading with the Imperium as a large. Tartaros you get from trading with and Terminator armor in general, actually. It's only purchasable like this through the Horus Heresy mod. Otherwise, you'd have to buy it from the Mechanicus, which they're really price gouging pricks. They really are. And Exterminatuses you buy for 1,000 requisition from the Inquisition. If you're really high enough favor, I think the cheapest I've ever talked them down to was 750. But that was like having maximum affinity with them. Alright. So let us begin. Find an enemy to kill. I guess we'll just sort of cruise around. Oh yes, Mechanica and Forge Worlds. You'll usually have 1 to 2 in each sector in a playthrough. If they are destroyed or taken over by the enemy, you can no longer trade with the Mechanicus for anything. You can no longer purchase starships, you can no longer purchase tanks. You still can purchase basic weapons and equipment. But protect those Forge Worlds, guys. It's really important that you do so. Alright, we will carry on. Canis Kellum. Ancient Ruins. Alright, good idea. Now, oh yes, before we do, I want to re-equip. This is how you re-equip Marines, by the way. Click on them, go re-equip. You choose what weapon you want to replace and what you want to replace it with. So we're going to add a Flamer. I want to add someone else with a Melter Gun. M for melter. And we'll add a combi flamer as well. Now, all of your companies will start off, and all your marines will start off with whatever weapons you selected for them in that beginning screen. So bolter and chainsaw is what you get. You don't have the codex thing of one squad member with a special weapon, one squad member with a heavy weapon. You have to manually do that yourself. And that's why giving equal disposition, which gives you access to all of these marines in your companies, is a good thing to do. It just balances everything out and keeps you from just having the same marines and the same weapons everywhere. I thought he had his head cut off. I guess he must have gotten better. Anyway, so we've got ancient ruins. Now, what we need to do for them is go, including you, go deal with it. So you have to manually select, unload the company, explore the ruins. Again, sometimes you might find gene seed or loot. Sometimes you might find enemies like this. So there we go. The entire company basically obliterated them, and we found 500 requisition. Now, as I said, it doesn't always manually reload your marines, so you need to do it yourself. Reload them back up to here. Alright, now off we go. Right, so we've got that. This is actually what I was looking for. So, on Dead Worlds you can build and create different things. A lair is basically just a hideout, a place to stash your marines. It's kind of, which can be further upgraded. I don't usually do that because it kind of, it's a bit of money and time. Arsenal, that is what you want, because the game has a, shall we call it, a bullshit feature where you need to fork over all artifacts, chaotic and demonic artifacts, to the Inquisition. However, you can only give it to them after the Inquisition has inspected your fleet or homeworld at least once. And having those artifacts in your possession will cause the Inquisition to declare you traitors. It's bullshit, and it always has been. So the way to counteract it, it costs you 1,500 bucks, is you build a secret arsenal, which will automatically garrison all of your artifacts into, wait for the Inquisition to inspect your fleet, which they will. Once they go away satisfied, you give them, let's go to diplomacy, you go Inquisition, or let's just say request audience, you give them all of your demonic artifacts, and their loyalty towards you will go up. This allows you to purchase and buy new things, and it just keeps you in the Inquisitorial good book. So basically you're spending 1,500 bucks because the game's a bit stupid in that regard, but there you go. Now you can destroy the chaotic or demonic artifacts at the start of a playthrough, save yourself 1,500 bucks and not have to give them to the Inquisition. However, it does have the chance of summoning greater demons to your ship, and it more than often has a chance of crashing the game. So just save up and fork out the 1,500 bucks, guys. It's definitely worth it. And again, Gene Vault, that just hides your Gene Seed and Test Slave incubators. Basically, it's kind of good because the Mechanicus doesn't, and the Inquisition itself, but not as to a chronic degree, don't like you doing so, so there you go. Alright, that's out of the way. Good, we can meet the Sisters of Bethel, we will praise them, and now we will speak to them. So, request audience. Now you can denounce them, you can praise them, you can discuss, which isn't actually a feature in this game. You can demand, which, why would you? You can propose alliance, but you're already allied, so I don't know why you'd do that. But the most important thing is to trade with them. Now, you can get from the Sisters of Battle Eviscerators, Heavy Flamers, Inferno Bolts. The best thing you can get is Sisters of Battle and the Sisters Hospitaller. I have made entire playthroughs where I've just basically bolstered my ranks with them. Sisters of Battle, basically it's an off-brand marine. Still has has power armor and bolter. You can't customize their weapons or give them better armor and equipment, but you're still getting a, well, less health than a standard marine, but they still have power armor and a bolter, and they're still more than capable of holding the line. Sisters Hospitaller are apothecaries that cannot harvest gene seed, but they can still heal your troops in between battles and during battles. So that's actually a really good thing to do. Now, you need 50 disposition with the Sisters of Battle or with any faction to trade and get their bottom 2 items. So, for the Inquisition, the bottom 2 items are Crusaders. Again, they're warriors similar to the Sisters of Battle, except they're armed with power swords and storm shields rather than bolters. And their bottom item is Exterminatus. Now, which I may as well explain how Exterminatus works while we're talking about it. So for an Exterminatus to work, exit talking to them, what you need to do is equip an Exterminatus beacon to any warrior in your company, and launch a raid battle on the planet you wish to Exterminatus. Then this is the cincher, you must win the battle. If you win the battle, then you get the option to destroy the planet. It's hard to do, and it costs a lot of money, but there you go. Alright, 2, 1. We're just going to denounce the orcs because we hate them. We're loyal after all. Again, another dead planet, so I could build a lair if I chose to. Alright, now let us go to Far. Oh, looks like the Imperium actually dealt with those orcs by themselves. I guess the 10 million guardsmen probably helped. Despite all the jokes about Planet of the Guardsmen, which believe me it happens and it's so frustrating when you see it, the Imperial Navy fleets actually are capable of defeating enemy planets, but don't hold your breath over it. You're basically doing everything yourself. What else? Oh yes, the biggest other advice I will give to you, we won't go looking for that artifact in case it crashes the game. I'm going to go find some orcs, and I'm going to explain some of the battle systems. 2, 1, 0. Alright, now, tiny orc presence, it's not really important. So you have the option of bombarding with multiple ships, or customizing ships that you want. I recommend, it's an interesting thought, but I don't actually recommend using bombardments personally as a tactic unless the enemy is above heavy, because let's just bombard this planet. It will kill everyone on it, basically. It's an off-brand Exterminatus, except it doesn't turn the planet into a dead world. Also, the other thing with it, with bombardment, is if you're doing it with any less than 2 ships, basically 2 ships or less, it won't do anything. It's worthless. You need to have at least 2 or more ships to be able to successfully bombard anything. So that's just something to consider. Alright, we're going to go to Nocta. Cool, you can be promoted as much as you like. That right there is bollocks, and that is probably 20 battleships, because while the icon should be, able to differentiate the size of a fleet, so you'd say, looking at that, you'd say 1 to 2 battleships and maybe 4 escorts. The game's awful at explaining that and telling you, and the game's very glitchy, so honestly, that is probably a fleet of 20 battleships, because the orcs are somehow able to spontaneously generate battleships out of nowhere. It's stupid. Alright. So, Orc World, you have the option of an attack. Now this is, you can choose what marines to bring or not to bring. I usually exclude the wounded. It's a good idea to kind of, if you want to just say, level up your veterans and scouts, then you can select it like that. Otherwise, I usually bring everyone to the party. Now, for an attack, it will basically just place you on the field. Again, we'll explain to that. Oh, there you go. That's a Peril of the Warp negative effect. That's actually a light one. Good, the orcs are down. good idea to just check, make sure none of your Marines are wounded between battles. Now, Librarians. Give them psychic hoods, because you're basically going to kill them. They're going to kill themselves if you don't. Now, psychic hoods cost you... it's under armor. They basically cost you $50 a time, but you're basically... if you don't, they're going to kill themselves. So it reduces perils of the warp by 50%, which is really necessary because these guys are able to kill themselves incredibly easily through perils of the warp if you don't. So that's just something worth considering. Another thing that... I apologize for the schizophrenic tone of this. I don't actually have a structure. This is, I am giving you my tips and knowledge as I'm remembering it, as it's coming to the front, so that's why it's so weird. Alright, now, apothecaries, they all start off in your flagship, and what you want to do if you actually want to transfer them to individual companies is select transfer to first company, and we'll say we want to transfer them to second company. What the game doesn't tell you, so let's say I want to transfer someone to ninth company, is it'll put them in the ninth company menu, but they will still be on whatever ship they were when they were promoted. So let's say quickly load him onto there, and we will load him back to what ship you want, the Potent Morning. So you kind of need to manually move your troops. That's a glitch, that shouldn't be able to happen, but there you go, that seems to happen a little bit actually. So there we go. Same thing with Tech Marines. You need to transfer them to the company you want them in. Otherwise, they will just sit in the flagship's main bulk and not do anything. So if you actually want them to benefit a company, you have to manually transfer them or promote them to said company. Alright. And Honor Guard and Sisters of Battle Mercenaries will go to the Chapter Master's basically menu. So if you're ever looking for where all your troops you've been hiring are going, they're going to this screen here. Alright. Oh yes. Now I explained you have 2 assault actions each turn for each individual engagement. So that's either 2 attacks or 2 raids or 1 bombard. A bombard counts as 2 actions. Now raiding is hideously overpowered. So let's just say we attacked a heavy world. Let's attack the moderate world with the with a full raiding force. Already gone to half strength. Dead. Raiding is hideously overpowered, and it's the only way to win battles. Don't land troops and don't do attacks unless you're confident in the amount of tanks you're bringing. Just raid. It's so much easier. Believe me. Doing like the Lamenter's Redemption playthrough, raiding, like attacking with, the 300 Marines you have, will get your chapter killed. Raiding keeps you in the fight. So just raid. Now, chapter settings. Again, this is basically just allowing you to rename and re-equip and reset what the standard settings are for each individual company as you're going. Boarding, I don't usually like to use it, but it's there, so I tend to try and ignore it if I'm possible. However, this is what I actually want to show you. So, battle formations. This is how it will look when you are attacking the enemy. So, the game starts you off putting all your tanks in the front. It puts your Chapter Master and regular units in the center, because sometimes you'll be attacked by infiltrators from the rear. Usually the Tyranids will be doing that, and it will be the flanking Lictor. It's become a known in-joke with me, the amount of times I've had to deal with flanking Lictor, but there you go. I sometimes, if I've got buffed out Honor Guard, I'll usually equip them in the back, because a few power swords can easily kill whatever flanking Lictors come your way. Now, the fact that it has the armor set up like this is stupid. Use your rhinos as a armored shield, because they're cheap, easy to replace, and they're much better as a meat shield than having your tanks. The dreadnoughts can take a massive amount of damage and can kill a lot of enemies, so it's good to keep them at the front before assault marines, because assault marines are actually quite squishy. Alright, now, again, chapter settings. Defense, this is what it will be if you land troops on a planet and the enemy attacks you. This is how it will set up. And again, I like to just bring troops back. And as for raid, it doesn't allow you to use any tanks, but it's so overpowered that you don't need them. So, you don't need to mess with it. It's perfectly satisfactory where it is. Alright, what other thoughts have I got off the top of my head? Armor. Armor's good. Again, you standard Mark 7 power armor, 16 armor class does nothing. For only $20, which is $10 more than Mark 7, outfit your chapter with Mark 6. Gives you plus 2 armor and 10% range damage, and if you're running the Horus Heresy mod like I am, just spend the extra $20 and fork out for Mark 4 Maximus. Plus 22 armor with plus 5% melee and ranged, it's just better. Again, psychic bomb, plasma bombs. If you're ever given a mission to destroy a Necron tomb world, what you need to do is this. I should really explain this now because this is actually important. So I usually take 3 to 5 Marines. I will re-equip them with bikes. And you give your captain the plasma bomb. Any more than 5 or 10 Marines, the Necrons will notice you, and you'll be drawn into a fight. But less than that, on bikes, you can basically zip into the tomb world, plant the plasma bomb, and get out. I've only ever had it fail on me once using this method of bike marines, so it's a good idea to do that. Also, do remember bike marines cannot take part in raid actions, so that's just sort of one of those things you want to keep an eye out for if you're trying to play White Scars. Alright, what else is off the top of my head? Oh, there's so many things I could say. I could talk about what the best currency conversions are for Gene Seed versus Requisition. I could talk about exactly how much money it costs for Sisters of Battle. By the way, it's... what did I get it down to? 100. Yeah, it's 100. Requisition will give you 3 Sisters of Battle. 150 will give you 3 Sisters of Battle and a Sisters Hospitaller. And I usually run it like that. That's with 50 ally disposition. That's just another tip and trick I have off the top of my sleeve. Vehicles, again, Land Raiders are pretty expensive. Rhinos are pretty cheap, but they're alright. Now, STC relics. You will find them as question marks somewhere. There you go, around. Question marks might be an artifact, ancient ruins, or an SDC. Now, SDCs are really good. Don't trade them to the Mechanicus. They'll give you 1 suit of Terminator armor, and that's it. It ain't worth it. But the amount of stuff you can get from this is brilliant. I mean, 16% discount on a starship brings it down to like $1,200. 25% discount makes it possible to fleet spam. Again, same with war gear and vehicles. The best things to get is the war gear discount and the ship's discount in my personal preference. Also, the random element can be bolt weapons do 10% more damage, or chain weapons do increase damage. Some vehicles things can be like vehicles have self-repair capability. So it's kind of, the random thing's usually pretty good, and it's definitely worth it. But the 8% discount, it turns like a chain axe from $4 to $3. It can turn a chainsaw to $2, which is, I think, actually the cheapest you can get it is for $1. So nothing will ever be free. It'll always cost $1 or more. Now, plasma weapons. plasma weapons are hideously overpriced for what they're worth and not worth it. If you're thinking of a plasma weapon, 140 damn melee rapid fire armor piercing, just consider getting yourself some more Devastator weapons. I mean, it's just more worth it. $190 for a plasma gun isn't worth it. So don't bother. Don't be Dark Angels, it ain't worth it. Again, all of these really pretty decent weapons. For weapons like Thunderhammers, you need to have a minimum amount of experience to use them. I found that out the hard way the first time, a few times I played it, but you basically need 80 XP to be able to use Thunderhammers. What else? Boarding shields are pretty good. Boarding shield and a bolter is good for clearing out space hulks. What else? I am manually re-equipping marines with certain weapons to bulk them out is a good idea. Also, for re-equipping weapons, you've got the different screens. So that's for ranged weapons, that's for melee weapons, that's mastercrafted weapons if you pick up any. Oh, that's for transferring, that's for promoting. What else? Oh yes, you need to have 90 XP to be able to use Terminator armor. So at the start of some playthroughs, you'll have, let's say 10 suits of Terminator armor sitting in your ship, and you won't be able to use it. It's a good idea to send First Company to clear out clear out ancient ruins, or even just manually, let's just say, manually landing them on a planet, and letting them have the first attack. There you go, see the orcs have chosen to attack, so we'll go defensive, rip them apart. Basically the land raiders covered the most of that bill, but eventually if you do that enough, you will be able to get yourself access to the Terminator armor that you would so richly need. Oh, what else? Oh yes, recruitment. Can't believe I forgot that. So, recruitment. It will cost you a negative amount of requisition each turn, but it will get you there, and these are basically, it just determines how fast it will be and also how much it will cost. So let's just go moderate, and everyone else can be slow. And let's go like that. So there you go, it's gone down to 24 because of specialist training and recruitment. Oh yes, temp company. So we haven't got any recruits left, any recruits able to be hired. So neophytes will go there, and it will usually be like, not 10 turns, sometimes it'll be like 30 turns or 50 turns, to turn recruits into marines. Boosh. Okay. Chapter. I've talked about chapter settings, I've talked about where hirelings go, talked about the fact you need to manually load and unload vehicles. Again, as you see, I left behind all the other remaining tanks on that planet, which means, well, they're just going to be sitting on the planet collecting dust like a parking lot. Oh yeah, you can name companies as well. Yes, I kind of like to do that to give them a bit of a personal history, or name them after a specific battle or something. It's kind of fun thing to do. Talk about apothecaries. Talk about marines and what kind of recruitment they would need. Destruction. Oh yes. Basically, if your chapter master dies, you lose the playthrough. So yeah, it's kind of a, if his ship's destroyed, then he automatically dies. Or if he dies, then you automatically lose the playthrough. Or if your chapter is entirely wiped out, which usually will coincide with the death of the chapter master, then you lose the playthrough there as well. Oh, event log. It's a good idea to keep an eye on this, because if the Inquisition give you a bullshit mission and you've forgotten what it is, then odds are it is in here somewhere and you can refresh your memory on it. Wait, recruitment. Armamentarium. Oh yes, for... Now it doesn't matter for equipment and armor because that just goes into the target pool, but for vehicles, let's just say I want Ninth Company to have a couple whirlwinds. Then we will go to Ninth Company, and we will see that they have 2 new whirlwinds, which will be on the flagship. So, there we go. You'll have to manually unload them and then reload them to whatever strike cruiser they are currently on. It's kind of one of those ones I also had to learn myself, because I'd be buying like a million Predators and wonder why only First Company was ever getting them. But for armamentarium weapons, it doesn't matter if I'm selecting First or Third Company. They will just be, they won't be automatically equipped to Marines in First or Third Company. As you can see, no Lightning Cores or Power Fists automatically equipped there. It will just go into the Community Armamentarium pool, in which case you can manually choose to re-equip a Marine as you see fit. There you go. Alright, now, I think that's everything that my brain can comprehend today. I'm sure I've missed out things, but I think this is a good, solid lump to inundate you with some of my tips and guides. I will do a Chaos Corruption guide at some point, but again, as I said, that takes a lot more work than you'd think it does. So that will happen eventually, and I will edit the part 1 of the Storm Knights Reborn Primaris thing, hopefully this weekend. Yeah, hopefully. Anyway, so that's all from me for now. The next one will be the Storm Knights Part 2 in maybe 2 or 3 days, and it will just be a bunch of random Let's Play and gameplay videos to fill in the time. I know you guys probably don't appreciate them as much, but it helps keep me sane. Because believe it or not, this game with the crashes and the bugs and the spontaneous orc fleets of 25 battleships can drive you a bit crazy. I think some of you have already commented on the rage and salt from some of my earlier chapter master videos. Anyway, that's all from me for today, lads. I shall bid you all farewell, because I have work tomorrow, and I really need to stop recording. Alright. Oh yes, if you have any other questions or want specific information or advice, just type it in the comments and I'll always get back to you. Alright, fare thee well, one and all.